What's going on, guys? Justin here with my Week 6 waiver wire pickups. I want to first say thank you guys for all the support as I just hit 100 subscribers. And over 98% of you guys that watch are not subscribed, so please click that subscribe button. Let's first look at some of the QBs I'm looking to add heading into Week 6. Matthew Stafford has posted back-to-back QB1 finishes, and he takes on a horrid Baltimore Ravens defense. This is a great streaming option for Week 6. Jackson Dart is still only owned in 56% of sleeper leagues, and he has had more than 50 rushing yards in each of his 2 starts. He does have a tough schedule ahead though, as he gets the Eagles twice in the next 3 weeks, and the Broncos are the team in between. If you really need another streaming option, Bryce Young is one. I don't love it, but the Panthers take on the Cowboys at home, and we all know how bad the Cowboys defense is. Moving on to the running backs. Michael Carter had 18 rushes and seemed to be the lead back for the Cardinals. He also scored a touchdown and had 5 catches. He does have a couple of tough matchups up against the Colts and the Packers in the next 2 weeks and then a bye in Week 8, but he should still be rostered and is startable. Kendre Miller was on this list last week and he's still only owned in 28% of leagues. He's had double-digit rush attempts in each of the last 2 games, and he actually had more rushing attempts than Kamara in Week 5. Tyrone Tracy is someone to pay attention to as he's only owned in 54% of sleeper leagues. It does seem like Scatabo has gained control of the backfield, but Tracy could be back in the next couple weeks and still see some work. Breece Hall was injured at one point in the game on Sunday against the Cowboys, so we should be monitoring his status. If he were to miss Week 6, it seems like Isaiah Davis would be the top running back option for the Jets. Omarion Hampton also left the Chargers-Commanders game with an ankle injury. Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins saw a similar share of work in both the rushing and the passing game. So this is going to be hard to predict which would be the lead back if Hampton were to miss time. And Brashard Smith was on this list last week too, and if you have a roster spot, try and grab him before Monday Night Football tonight. I think he could eventually take over the backfield, and the coaches have said he deserves more playing time. Let's move over to the wideouts I'd be looking to add, starting with Kendrick Bourne. He put up a monster stat line in Week 5, catching 10 passes for 142 yards. If Ricky and Juwan were to miss again in Week 6, Bourne could be a nice streaming option. Trey Tucker had 7 opportunities in Week 5 and takes on a very bad Titans defense in Week 6. I'm not sure if I can trust Geno, but with buys and injuries, Trey Tucker could be an alright start next week. Josh Downs caught 6 passes on 8 targets in Week 5, and he had his best game of the season so far. If you are in need for a wide receiver next week, he's an okay option. I have to mention Ryan Flournoy. He put up 18 points with CeeDee and Turpin missing Week 5. He is a potential streaming option if the pass catchers miss again in Week 6. I've mentioned Jalen Coker a few times on this channel, but it seems like his return could be soon. He would take over the slot wide receiver for a Panthers team that is always in the need to pass. Tight end might actually be the deepest of this list this week. Mason Taylor was on my starts list last week as the Jets took on the Cowboys, and Taylor has increased his targets in each of the last 3 weeks and caught 9 passes on 12 targets in Week 5. They take on the Broncos in Week 6, so a tougher matchup, but he is emerging as the number 2 pass catcher for the Jets. Harold Fannin caught all 4 of his targets, and 1 was a touchdown. Dillon Gabriel did not get the ball very much to wideouts, and the tight ends were the major pass catchers in his first start. I could see more of this happening moving forward. Evan Ingram just had his best game of the season, scoring 13.3 fantasy points. The Broncos take on the Jets next week, who have a very bad defense, so he could be a tight end option in Week 6 and moving forward. Dalton Schultz has had 3 straight games of 6 targets and 5 catches, but he is on a bye in Week 6. Good enough to keep an eye on, but I don't know if he's a must-add this week. Theo Johnson seems to be the main beneficiary from the Malik Neighbors injury. He's had 5 or more targets in 3 of the last 4 games and caught 6 passes in Week 5 with 2 touchdowns. He could be a solid option for Jackson Dart moving forward. Cade Otton has had 4 or more targets in the last 2 games, and he put up 12 fantasy points in Week 5. There are a number of mouths to feed in Tampa Bay, but they have a favorable pass schedule ahead. I'm not exactly sold on A.J. Barner, but I had to mention him after his 3-touchdown game in Week 5. The Seahawks do use 2 tight ends a lot, so it is harder to start Barner, but he has had 3 top 12 tight end finishes in the last 4 weeks. Some of the defenses that I like to target on a week-to-week basis are usually the big favorites where the other team is in the need to pass, because this produces sacks and turnovers. I also like them if they are playing at home. So some of the defenses I would want in Week 6 are the Packers versus the Bengals, the Broncos versus the Jets, the Eagles versus the Giants, the Rams versus the Ravens, the Raiders versus the Titans, and maybe the Bucks versus the 49ers. That's all for this video. Let me know any questions you have in the comments, and please drop a like and hit subscribe.